How can people be so heartless? How can people be so cruel? How can people be so hard and so cold? We are compelled to acknowledge the suffering and the connection of Ms. Rayme and all victims of physical and emotional abuse. Allow me to cut across the field and connect the dots. It seems as though we are confronted every week with unprovoked, cowardly acts and attacks. So what do we feel? We get up this morning feeling anger, bitterness, anguish, hurt, pain, and of course, rage. What transpired at that BP service station was physical and emotional abuse. We will not and cannot allow or tolerate these kinds of racist attacks and attitudes to go unchecked. We will not allow or tolerate white racist attacks on black women here in Jacksonville, Florida. We are drawing a line in the sand. We demand that this man be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. This incident was a hate crime, and it should be prosecuted as such. What are we asking? We're asking that State Attorney Melissa Nelson to meet with us immediately to discuss this matter. The Northside Coalition is a nonviolent civil rights organization, but still, we are drawing the line in the sand. We have the same simple and reasonable request, and that is upgrade this charge to a felony and deem it to be a hate crime because it is.
My heart aches knowing that I was unable to protect my daughter from this heinous crime. It disturbs me to know that my daughter now feels unsettled about entering a gas station alone. As a human, it saddens me that we still live in a world of racism and hate. Again, I just want to thank everyone for their continuous support. We would like to see justice in this case. Please keep our family in your prayers.
Thank you. Certainly, Rayme McCoy sits next to me where Jordan never did. Big difference. Does that make her fortunate? No. Does that make her lucky? No. Kevin Troy Williamson, the perpetrator here, has tried to tell us for decades who he is. Registered sex offender since the 80s and 90s. He's trying to tell us he can't be trusted with civility with all of his arrests. It's a compact we all have when we go out in public that we're gonna be civil to one another, that we're gonna treat each other right, that we're gonna care about one another. But when our leaders, when our politicians, when our elected officials don't follow that, of course we're in a situation where people go into schools and shoot them up, where people can't even go get gas safely. So you can't say, thankfully, Rayme's alive. But thankfully, compared to the tragedy yesterday and the day before and the day before, she has a concussion, a significant head injury. She's had to be counseling. She can't even sit through this press conference without being overwhelmed with a reminder of what happened to her last Friday. So Kevin Troy Williamson tried to tell everybody he's a predator. He was convicted of a predatory sex crime in 1990, 2 counts of aggravated assault in 2000. Guess what? Dropped.
He was booked on May 20th. He was bonded out 11/49, the 21st. What was your response to that?
I can respond. Number one, to this very moment, I think Kevin Troy Williamson is a threat to public safety that everybody in Jacksonville should be concerned with. His bonding out is one thing. The procrastination and the slowness in which JSO moved in terms of his arrest is another. Why is it that someone that they knew who he was, had his tag number on the date of the actual incident, why should it take 4 to 5 days before he was arrested? What lesson does that teach us? We are confronted with the same thing when it comes down to JSO and the state attorney's office that we have concerned ourselves with for the past 5 years. Trust, transparency, and accountability. That is what we're demanding here today as we move forward. Trust, transparency, and accountability. We think that there's too often racial bias, implicit and explicit, in terms of the criminal justice system, in terms of law enforcement. It's time for us to move forward. And Melissa Nelson can make clear on where we are if she moves to deem this as a hate crime. Melissa came into office in January 2017 because so many of us felt like the person who preceded her was insensitive to the needs of the community, that there was a critical disconnect between the state attorney's office and the people.